You're listening to Freight Famous, presented by Rose Rocket, bringing you the people that make trucking move. From behind the scenes into the limelight. Here's your host, Justin Bailie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Freight Famous, a podcast produced by Rose Rocket. New episodes of Freight Famous will be released about twice a month. On this podcast, we talk with our guests about how they build, scale, and automate their trucking and transportation businesses. If you have a trucking business or a transportation business, you might be looking for trucking or transportation software, or you might know someone who is. If you do, I've got some good news. Rose Rocket has some free money to give you. That's right, free moolah. All through our incentivized referral program. Sorry, it was weirdly typed here today. To learn more, email us at referralpartners@roserocket.com, and a member of our team will be in touch. I'm your host, Justin Bailie, co-founder at Rose Rocket, and today we have with us Shayna. Shayna is from 7th Generation Capital. You hear that, you're like, oh, this is like an investment company or something like that. No, it's not. It's actually really cool. I heard about this business several years ago. What they do is they help businesses electrify their fleets. But by helping, they advise them, they provide financing and capital, software, and all the sort of the necessary knowledge you need to take your mid-sized fleet at this point, but moving actually into even Class 8 fleets on how to get you from a pilot project, which was super interesting talking through about how they start doing this. They don't start with an entire 100, truck final mile trucks and put them out there. They start with, a few trucks, run the pilot, get them on the grid, and then get those electrified and then kind of roll out. It's a very thoughtful, pretty complicated process, but they seem to make it really easy. Again, heard about them years ago and loved the business then, and it was really, really cool to hear, how far they've come and how deep they are in this now. So give this a listen if you have any interest on anything around electrification of vehicles. This is probably one of the more practical, knowledgeable, non-bullshitty conversations I've had around electrification of vehicles and the sort of pros and cons and what's real and what's fiction. So enjoy the listen as much as I enjoyed the conversation. Hey, Shayna, thanks for being here. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Great to be here.
So I ask everyone, and this will be no surprise to regular listeners, but I'm curious as to what is 7th Generation Capital, and then from there I want to hear how did you end up here? So maybe we'll start with that as the preface, and then you can go ahead and rip on how you got here and who you are a little bit.
Yeah, sure thing. And jump in and to help me along the way. I've only had one coffee today.
Okay.
So 7Gen. 7Gen is an electric vehicle and charging infrastructure leasing company. We are focused on working with just medium and heavy duty fleets. Now, it primarily means medium duty at this time because the heavier duty options are frankly newer to the market and not handling the payload that sector needs, but that's the segment we're focused on. Our whole mission is we just aim to make the integration of electric vehicles easier. It's a lot of new tech, the kilowatt side of things for people that have never installed significant heavy duty electrical infrastructure can just be a lot of barriers, let alone the cost. So we really aim to, as we say, mobilize the money and the know-how to, as we say, we lease electric vehicles as a service to our clients. So we provide the infrastructure support, the financing, so effectively they pay us similar to what they're spending on fuel today in the form of a monthly lease payment, and the software layer so that we know we can pull from vehicle telematics and charger software to really optimize once we've got these vehicles deployed. Yeah, our mission is let's just alleviate those upfront costs so that we can deploy available technology today.
That's great. I actually have heard about, I think I met somebody from your company at a networking event some time ago. I don't know who it was, and I don't know how long ago it was. I can't, honestly, because of COVID, I have no idea if it was last year or 9 years ago. So it was a time ago that wasn't today. That's all I can be clear about. But I loved the idea then. I loved the concept. I think it makes a ton of sense. So how was this company able to bring someone like you on board? I mean, you're a co-founder, so it's when did you show up and why did you show up and what did you do before this that made you want to do this?
Great questions, organizing them in my head. How did I end up here? Well, we started this company smack dab in the beginning of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Why then? As we all remember, world ground to a halt, but you know who didn't? Transporters, people moving stuff to our homes, to our stores. And the thing I was particularly struck by were the 15, and I mean 15 different brand new Amazon cargo vans that were delivering stuff up and down my street on a daily basis. And by brand new, I meant, oh my God, someone's literally gone out and purchased this, and this vehicle is going to be on the road for the next decade. And I can see it is literally doing the same route every day. And in my mind, having spent 10 years working from, and I always say working from the energy major Shell, and obviously provision of fossil fuels to fuel society, I realized that this is a segment that doesn't need to be using fossil fuels. If you're doing the same route every day, return to base in a place where there's provision of clean electricity, i.e. hydroelectric electricity over coal, you should be buying EVs. So with that sort of nudge, and my now co-founder and I were doing a small piece of consulting for a tourism industry client who had said, listen, I know this beautiful place we live in is my bread and butter. And if I don't start, decarbonizing my operations, I might not have a business in 30 years. So he had this, big, hairy, audacious goal. I want to electrify all 70 of my buses in the next 3 years. Well, boom, global pandemic. He lays off 246 staff. He mothballs all but 3 of his buses. And I could have said, well, forget that consulting project. But the aha was there. The reason he couldn't go faster was his bankers would not finance him to get into those electric buses. Why? They didn't know the residual value of them. Number 2, he just frankly didn't have cash flow to do it, even if he was an ambitious entrepreneur. And as I saw these Amazon vehicles on our road, you just thought, that's not the only organization that's going to have this problem. And while we clearly need to put that tourism project on hold while we right the ships, transportation doesn't shut down when the world shuts down. And I mean, Justin, I'm so excited to speak with you and the people you speak to, because frankly, I'm only 4 years into the world of transportation. Prior to that, I was working at 50,000 feet talking about, what are the energy transition targets we want and what's going to be in the COP agreement at the end of the year, these 50,000 feet things our government leaders are agreeing on. And yeah, great. We all need those moonshot targets. But you know what? We ain't going to get there unless we start chipping away at a concrete part of the problem. And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, I think you actually hit on something really interesting there where the thing that and this isn't actually, I wasn't the original, this isn't my original thought, but someone had put this into my mind and I've kind of run with it and probably tried to portray it as my own. But it feels that from the government's, the government feels too far away from this problem. And and I think that, so the ambition, and actually I was saying to Steve, our producer before we came on, I said, this is sort of a hot button topic. And he was like, why? And I said, basically that. I said, there is a lot of questions around, and so maybe we can hit on some of these questions. There's a lot of question around available power. So, if everybody goes electric today, can our grid handle that? I think the broad answer is no. What do we do with batteries when they go bad? There's a lot of this sort of, what then? Is this actually that much better? The quality of the energy, where does the energy come from? So source of energy, you kind of touched on that before. So clean energy versus, if we start running low on energy, where is it going to come from? What's available to us? And how can we get things online quickly? So maybe it's firing up old coal plants, which is kind of counterintuitive. And then and all of that surrounded by the government saying, we need to be electric by this date. And I've spent some time, I've been recently spending some time in California, which is sort of like ground zero for hardcore government mandate around electrification. And you're looking at this stuff, you're like, man, like you don't have the infrastructure to actually hit these mandates. Even I don't, from my relatively uneducated brain on this. So let's ask some of these questions. So
Sure.
How are you kind of helping, like, maybe what is your perspective on some of those things that I just spoke through? And what is the practical path to electric? And like to your point, like forget heavy duty for now, because I think that does have a huge sort of challenge that is yet to be totally figured out. But thinking on the medium duty that you're talking about right now, and I think a good, like, I'm thinking of like FedEx trucks and vans that are delivering Amazon stuff as like maybe like this, is this, just to be clear, is this what we're talking about when we say medium duty?
Yeah. I'm talking those cargo vans right up to, getting pretty comfortable with some of the smaller box trucks. There's a lot of good options in that segment.
Okay, perfect. And then so what is the, talk to me about how we actually do this without frying the grid, without creating, like a water balloon, solving a problem here, but having another one pop up over there. And I'm not expecting the full, this is how all the problems are solved, but maybe how are you thinking about some of the things I just grabbed right now are really like, Globe and Mail headline things. So it's like, okay, fine. Like, you've heard all of this before. So how do you guys think about that?
So
some of these things?
I like to go up a level before we go down into the weeds, if that's cool.
Do it.
Because with any transition, right, there's a lot of new. And we can sit here umming and ahhing this over this or that over this. And how are we going to solve for this? And like, whoa, let's not do anything until we got it all solved. But we know that's not how change happens. So I like to focus, first of all, highly on the problem. And then secondly, where can we start? And what I guess more important before I even say that, because I want to meet you where you started, like all the problems. I just want to say we've done this before. Like 110, 20 years ago, the majority of our cities had horse and buggy moving stuff around. And we were starting to get that problem like, oh crap, we got literally too much shit in the streets.
Yeah. Right.
But like, I can't change, I've like made my whole plan around this. And today we don't think about how you refine fossil fuels and move fossil fuels and get them to a gas station and into our cars. We don't even think about it. We will get there with the electrification of transportation, but no, we are not there today. So I get excited about that transition because I don't know if you've seen that famous photo. It was a photo of one of the major thoroughfares in New York City. I think early like 1920s and then 1930. In 1920, like 90% of the vehicles on the street are horse and buggy. And 10 years later, there's 2 horse and buggies on it. And it's all vehicles. It's all Model T Fords. So that's kind of where we're at, right?
I just want to give a shout out to that picture because I just read a book, just finished it last week, and it's by anybody who's listening to this show will probably know who Brad Jacobs is. If you don't, he was a founder of XPO, also United Rentals, also anyway, the business is called How to Make a Few $1 Billion, and he talks about innovation, shows that exact picture. So I just saw it. And so yes, to that point, it had nothing to do with electrification. It was more about the rate of change once something starts to create headway. And so I think actually just an analog from that is that the shift came there when the Model T became available because it was accessible. It could be made quickly and it could be bought cheaply. And so I think this is what we're talking about here, right? Is moving towards a scalable version of electrification, which to your point, we're not fully there, and we don't have to be because you don't have everything solved when you're creating a material shift like this. It's like no one has it all figured out before you launch. If you kind of think from a product lens, like if you're not embarrassed of the first product you shipped, you waited too long to ship it, right?
I love that. No, and that's exactly where we're at. And I mean, I'll be frank, I'll name our naivete, right? When we started, we're like, you know what? If we can just mobilize the money,
right?
If our client's banker won't bank him, but we spend the years going to all of these banks with these ESG aligned funds.
Yeah.
We put the pressure on them and say, you're looking for deals? We'll aggregate you those deals. Our job will be done. Well, that was not the extent of our job.
How come? Because that sounds super, like, I like that. I'm like, okay, great idea.
Would have been wonderfully simple business.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, the why is the infrastructure side of things. And it is all of those challenges you named. Do we have enough power? Can we get enough power? It's not just you go, I want to get an EV and I plug it into the wall. You've only got so much capacity to your facility. So we work with clients now. And again, I'll say I'm the least technical member of the 7Gen team. I'm one of the 3 co-founders, but everyone else is an electrical engineer, a software designer.
I know the feeling. I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that's why they have me up here doing podcasts. So yeah, I totally get
maybe
it.
This is my future.
Yeah, exactly. Get used to it.
I'll see you. We'll do a whole series on this, driving the change. That'll be what it's called. We'll come back to that one.
Yeah.
But no, we've had to wade really far into not only the infrastructure design and working with utilities and all that stuff, we've also had to lean into the supply chain. I mean, we've took crazy bets. We're self-funded for our first 3 years. Thank you to my co-founder having a successful previous exit and him saying, I got enough for me and my family, and the rest of this money needs to do good in the world. So awesome founding story, and we didn't have to go around begging for money to start. But once we got other money in the door, it was very much, okay, like we've got to do the hard yards. And the part of the hard yards was we put down our, oh my gosh, just raised money to pre-purchase 100 electric cargo vans from a particular OEM. That's a crazy bet. But why did we do it? Then we could get more discounted pricing. Then we could hand that on to our clients. With that, we could then get a certainty of a certain amount of demand, which helped us pre-purchase some of the switch gears and chargers and all of the stuff you need. So that when we finally got a fleet manager saying, you know what, I'm ready to do this, we were able to say, okay, we can help you, instead of, oh, it's a 12-month supply chain wait to get your charging infrastructure. Those are some of the crazy bets that we've taken to work through this messy bit. But Justin, you were trying to go down into all the problems, and I said I wanted to.
No, it's okay. Can I ask you a question? Because now you got me thinking about something else.
Okay.
So I feel like I always do this, and so I hope this isn't boring for the listeners. But I just really get excited about businesses I don't really understand because I want to. So if I'm a fleet of, I don't know, like 50 vehicles or something like that. And like, how do you get, I'm just trying to picture this, like, okay, I want to go fully electric. Well, you don't have enough amperage. I'm just thinking of like, we're currently like doing a house renovation and we don't have enough power for like the hot tub. I'm just like picking a thing, right? So it's like, okay, we need to bring in another breaker, but we're talking about like, we have electric vehicles. I already know the requirement. Like these actually are relatively, like, I think you need like 50 amp service for like the electric vehicles. So I'm picturing 50 of these. Even as little as I know about commercial, like, are you bringing in transformers? Are you funding transformers from like Hydro One? Is that like happening?
Yeah, so this gets messy pretty quick. Where do we start, right? We do an assessment. Okay, you got those 50 trucks. What routes are they doing now? Which ones can we electrify? Which ones are in the realm of technology?
Got it.
All right, stuff that's less than 300 kilometers a day, let's start there.
Yep.
Here's the vehicle options that do the job.
Yep.
Now let's slow down a minute. Let's actually look at your facility.
Yeah.
So I always love it when we have a client that says, oh yeah, our warehouse is based at a former, mattress making factory. And I'm like, you got power.
Right.
Versus someone else who is in an older part of a city. You can see it's incredibly dense. You already know that's an old grid. It's an overloaded system. But this is where I get to, there's some wonderful research out there, like CalSTART has done great stuff. NACFE, the North American Council for Freight Electrification, they've got great reports out there that show us, of the 520,000 vehicles on the road at any given time, what's the route they're on average doing. And frankly, a lot of them are far less than the range of available vehicles today. So it's not we're all driving home and you have a completely empty battery. Many times it's 40-50% is left over. So for most of our clients, because they're doing last mile delivery, they're not allowed to do that in the middle of the night because of noise and all this stuff. They're only working for 8 to 12 hours during the day. We got a big chunk of time at night to charge. And we are able to just put in level 2 chargers. So not the big DC fast chargers, but a slow charge overnight. And if it's a cargo van, it might be topped back up in a couple of hours.
Got it.
If we then have, 2 ports from one charger and you have software that does energy management, actually drivers just plug them in, they go home. We have a software layer that says which vehicle charges when, and it's not a huge draw on power. But let's be frank, if they have 50 trucks and they want to electrify all 50 of them, it will not all be in this year.
Got it.
We will start with the capacity they have. In parallel, we will start a conversation with their utility and we will say, let's get planning for the future. And that utility conversation sometimes comes with an answer, can help you for 12 to 18 months.
Right.
So then you get to the next part, and this is where the technology gets super exciting, right? There's actually the option for battery energy storage. There's a lot of off-grid things you can do to help get the power you need. Now, of course, it costs. So where we have, 7Gen is working with everything from pretty small SME owner-operator clients right up to the biggest courier companies in North America. And the latter group, they understand the importance of resilience, backup power, all of these things. So we are starting the conversation with them around battery integrated storage. And this is where the next step is. You mentioned earlier, right? Oh my God, if we electrify all these vehicles, are we going to have enough capacity on the grid? Well, yes, but not with the technology we have available today. Some of your audience may have seen the Ford Lightning pickup truck ads where some of those vehicles now are enabled with what's called V2X, i.e. it's a really cool ad in the middle of the Super Bowl. I think Kia had one this last Super Bowl where at the end there's the tear jerker scene where they drive up to grandpa and grandma's somewhere out in the outback and they plug a big speaker into the car. And actually the car is working like vehicle 2X. The car is providing power from its battery. Now, this is not happening with all EV models. No, this is not happening at scale, but it is happening. And even our little company is working with clients who maybe have seasonal use of their vehicles. Back to our tourism client, right? He's only driving May to October. It's a huge investment in an expensive vehicle to then sit for a period of time. How can his vehicle become a revenue source for them? And we maintain battery health. Well, we use that vehicle as a V2X at a time of year when we all have more power needs. So there's some really cool research about this in the UK where they say, if we keep growing like we're growing in the UK, by 2050, we're going to need another 25 gigawatts of power, which is not yet built. With V2X, at 2050, they'll need 5 gigawatts less than they're using today. So I can't say to your audience, we've got it sorted, but I can say this is the future that's coming.
So I love this. This is, and I'm going to give away, I feel like I give away a business idea every other show, but they're all like, ideas are cheap, so it doesn't matter. So it's interesting technology because during, I think we all went through, not all of us, but I did, and some of my peers, because we're these types of people, during, I don't know, I went through a heavy crypto phase, like most of us, when all it could do was go up and to the right, and if you're the smartest person in the world to buy as much Bitcoin as you could until you lost it all, right? And during that period of time, I was thinking a lot about trucks. Like this is crazy. So I wanted to generate Rose Rocket tokens that would be generated by the power of the trucks. So the trucks would actually mint the tokens based on the power but I didn't know the technology. I didn't know how that could exist, right? But it was like the power use of the truck would then mint tokens, and then the tokens could be put back, and they'd be accretive to the performance of the driver, and like all the blah, 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 all this like long tail stuff that came as a result. But ultimately it came down to like the truck having power to generate. But I was like, I don't know shit about this technology. I don't even know if this is a thing. But you just described, like, kind of put that back on anyway, you go talk to my co-founder who I was talking about this before, tell him you can
Justin,
do it.
that's the origin of our story. You know how I said my co-founder helped us co-fund this little organization? Well, his previous startup was in the crypto space.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for money, let's make it do good stuff.
Good. Well, what's different about your co-founder and myself is probably amongst many things is that he or she had success in crypto. I did not. So that is but damn it, I'm coming back and I'm gonna make trucks mining applications. Watch out, Rose Rocket trucking customers. You're gonna be minting coins before you know it.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's damn cool. So I think what I'm hearing, and I like this, is that it's not all solved today. This is like the summary of like this kind of like micro conversation we're having in the broader conversation. But there are technologies coming quickly to solve a lot of these problems, and they're coming from multiple directions, it sounds like. So it may not necessarily be this linear, application, but it's like the collection of all the solves are going to create eventually a full sort of tip to tail solution around what needs to happen. And I like the idea of the staged rollout. I think this is again kind of going back to even broadly the whole thing around electrification is it's a staged rollout, and even in your sort of go to market strategy is a staged rollout, because it kind of like it has to be, because to your point, you can't just electrify all of your vehicles overnight. And so I think it's the one thing that's on my mind though, is you're kind of talking through all these things. It's like these sound like pretty significant capital investments. Like I'm just kind of adding it up in my mind. I'm like, shit, there's a lot here. Like it's not just the vehicles, like to your point, right? There is, like you said, there's switches, there's things I don't even know about, there's softwares, there's a lot. So what's the, because, it's the unfortunate byproduct of this thing called capitalism is we don't really do anything unless we get money for it. So what's the pitch on the ROI here? Like what is that part of it?
Yeah. Well, if you don't need to do a huge infrastructure upgrade, and we can put really a new panel and a relatively basic level 2 charger. In the case of cargo vans, you're getting a return on investment if you're going, 150 kilometers a day, driving 5 days a week. That could be within 2 to 3 years based on cost of fuel.
Yeah.
Now, we're in Europe or other places where cost of fuel is even higher. That TCO is even better. But we have the glory of, and I know not all of your listeners will agree with me, but frankly, cheap gas in North America.
Yeah.
But in the heavier duty vehicles, yes, I mean they're extremely costly. They can be 3 to 4 times the cost of their combustion engine equivalent. And yeah, the TCO there is 6-7 years. And let's be frank, that's helped by really healthy federal and provincial incentives. So upwards of 150,000 per vehicle at both a provincial and federal level, and that won't be forevermore. Which is the point. We're naming it. It is complex, and either do it yourself, and you're going to have hiccups along the way. Because let me tell you, it's not just buy a truck and buy a charger. It is a continuous exercise of, and you'll know this from your experience at Rose Rocket, of interoperability. Yes, these vehicles are much simpler than a combustion engine vehicle, right? 50 to 60 moving parts vis-a-vis the hundreds in internal combustion engine vehicle and all of the fluids that you need to maintain and all of that stuff. So service is easier, but a heck of a lot is now done through software, right? How is it talking to the charger? Oh, the charger does a new software update. Does that throw the whole thing out of whack? So there's a lot of continuous maintenance. It's not as simple as buy a truck and get a gas card. Remember, it's taken us, a few decades to even get to that simplicity in an internal combustion engine vehicle. So there's a Bezos quote that I don't always quote him, but he'll say about all the things that Amazon's done. He goes, our success hasn't been a function of our investment in proof of concept projects, knowing they're all going to work. It was knowing that while they might not be right in all of them in the short run, being slow and playing catch up later is how your competitor's going to kill you. So our clients that are starting to get into these vehicles, yes, they're outsourcing it to us. When stuff isn't working, it's us that are on the phone call with the 3 players, the software, the charge. It's us calling the utility. We're doing that hard work for them. That is our value proposition. Customers that don't work with it, fleet managers are saying, I've got a lot of extra work on my plate. In fact, a client from one of our courier companies who has been a fleet manager for 20 years and worked at a few of the OEMs, he says, Shayna, with electric vehicles, 70% of my job changes.
Right.
So start now or start later. Right now, it's only incentives. There's a few dangling carrots, right? There's some money on the table if you want to start early. In time, there will be sticks, right? So I lived in London 15 years ago now when the first congestion charge got introduced. So that was just trying to reduce traffic in the city. Well, that's evolved to a low emission fee. If you want to drive a diesel truck into London, you pay. That adds to your bottom line, that eats into your margin. So either you're passing that on to a customer who says, sure, I don't care. Or you have a customer who's probably, if they're a major retailer and they're publicly traded, they have something called they're part of something called a science-based target initiative. So if we're trying to keep global warming within the 2 degrees that we know throws things into catastrophic space, they are reporting in their financial results, their direct emissions, and those that are scope 3, or when they move goods through a third party. And they are starting, at least in the case of one of our first clients, IKEA, they're starting to make decisions which transporters they work with, which even ports they move goods through based on how decarbonized that route is. So if you don't wake up now, you're going to wake up in the next contract renewal and go, oh crap, I am locked out.
Actually, so let's I have 3 questions I want to ask you. Well, probably more. And you mentioned that around IKEA, and so I hear you say IKEA, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like brand play, right? And this isn't meant to be cynical. I'm sure there's all sorts of reasons. Or European, they're generally, I think, more progressive when it comes to doing. I'm going to say doing the right thing. That's probably a little unfair, but they're more environmentally conscious, I think, as a society. I guess. Why are most people showing up to do this? What is the incentive? Is it a financial incentive? Is it we deliver consumer goods and we're trying to make the promise for P&G and their carbon neutral toilet paper, which honestly is bullshit. And then they like, or like, why are the majority of people showing up for this?
The why
Yeah.
is our health.
Yeah.
I don't have the stats at the top of my finger, but I could direct you to resources like the Department of Health in the U.S.
And just to be clear, I mean more colloquially, like on the ground level,
Yeah,
from the people you're talking to, right?
It starts up there. So I'm going to go high and I'm going to go low, right?
Yeah.
So medium and heavy, like let's focus in on this particular segment, transport. That's what we're talking about. The medium heavy duty buses and trucks. So I acknowledge there's movement of people in this too, in this stat. They account for 40% of our greenhouse gases from transportation. The rest is frankly shipping, which is pretty massive. Now, they're only 3% of the on-road vehicle stock. Start to do something in this segment where clean technology exists. I don't still need to invent it, and I'm using it every day. You will move the needle on, frankly, this stuff that we're not debating anymore. It is causing catastrophic weather events. It is a cost to business in the form of insurance, in the form of, I live here in Vancouver. Some of us will remember the time of these atmospheric rivers wiped out the bridges, highways that got Vancouver connected to the rest of the country. Given that this is the biggest port in the country, yeah, that was a major catastrophic event. So the why is up on that health piece. And I say it for the following reason. All these people who work at these big companies, we also live in cities. The majority of us that live in cities live within 250 meters of a major thoroughfare. So I'm talking a highway, a blower street, what have you. The air quality there is 40 to 400% worse than in rural regions. So in the city of London a few years ago, they declared the actual cause of death of a 9-year-old girl to be bronchial problems caused by the major flyover that her home was beside. That's the high level.
Right.
Any of these big companies that are, as I said, aligning to the science-based target initiative, they're not doing it for greenwashing. That is bullshit, and I'm calling it bullshit. We are doing it for collective health, insurance, operational reasons. That's why. Okay. And it's moving deck chairs in the Titanic in the corner of which technology, and is it hydrogen or is it what? It's full of it.
Yeah.
It is what we can do today so that in 10 years' time, we're throwing up that picture that looks like the Model T and the horse and buggy in New York.
Nice. Well said. Repairs. So you mentioned that there's like new componentry, there's new software. How does this change if I'm a company thinking about doing this, like, are there enough people who know how to fix these things? Like, do you create a labor challenge now with this? Like, you guys must have come across this as you're kind of implementing. How does that look? How's that showing up? One implemented, shoot, we don't have enough people to do this, or there's not enough skilled trades in this. Like, I don't know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Justin, all of it. And I kind of come back to we got to get started to make it a compelling place to have a 15, 20-year-old say, yeah, I want to get my electrician's certification. I want my red seal. We have to demonstrate that this is real, that this is major. Number two, I don't know how much of your audience is north of the border, south of the border. In the US, you've got bigger cities, you got bigger economies. That's why California is going as full court press as they are in this transition. They're doing it for a bunch of air quality reasons. They're doing it for, frankly, a lot of economic reasons. Like that port and the level of commitment they're making to decarbonizing is literally having, the shippers sitting in their office in Switzerland or wherever planning movements of goods around the world. They're starting to pay attention and go, you know what, we're going to stop moving it in from Prince Rupert or Vancouver or Tacoma. We're going to move it in through LA. We can get it to a warehouse. That's going to have our scope 3 0.
Yeah.
So, on the labor side, therefore, there's such a critical massive activity in California. You are starting to get the service, electricians, people know that this is serious.
Yeah.
In a more, lower population, smaller regions, really spread out place. Yeah, it's hard. And we have clients that'll say, oh yeah, I went to this truck show and I'm super excited about this OEM. And I'm like, they have no service in your region. So awesome. If you want to be that guinea pig, awesome. We will support you in it. But if you are not wanting to be an early adopter and, you're someone that more often follows, we got to go with what has been deployed sufficiently in the region that we know we can go to blah, blah, blah dealer and we know they know what they're doing. And, I'm so appreciative of the dealers that are sticking their necks out and they're getting their teams trained. They're putting down money to get vehicles into our cities. It's a huge risk. And they've got a ton of noise in the system that says, the grid's not ready. Well, again, we got to start doing this with scale. We all get the folks trained up. We get the supply chain. We get the grid infrastructure. So I just wish that we'd stop fighting each other. I wish this attitude of stop, wait and see which technology wins would dial down a little and we'd all get up to that health insurance costs, like get started now place.
Yeah. Well, Shayna, we are in Canada. We are Canadians, and there's this, and so to answer your question, most of our listeners are south of the border, but we make jokes about Canada at times and about the U.S. as well, because there's both lots to joke about on both fronts. But certainly the sort of idea of a Canadian, it's like, I've invented a time machine, and they I want to try it, and you put them in the time machine, and they go into the future, and they come back, and they say, so what do you think? Do you want it? And they'll say, maybe let me think about it. Right? I mean, it's like it is a like. Totally. Yeah, we're a conservative bunch here. So I think I think any large initiatives, and by the way, I just told that story wrong, but I'm not going to tell it again. But the point I'm trying to make is Canadians are conservatives. I miss a complete part of that joke. So it was like, that's not very funny because I told the joke.
The ones that know it are laughing.
Yeah, they're laughing. He's like, oh, I know that joke, but you told it wrong. Oh my God. Okay, so the point is Canadians are conservative. It's hard, I think, to get Canadians to move from stuff. I think there is a lot of noise that is manufactured in Canada in support of the fossil fuel industry. There's a lot of things against you and a lot of things, not you, but like this movement and sort of what you're after. So I totally get that must be challenging. But I think also like the forces of nature, not literally, but figuratively in this case, are actually moving in that direction. You kind of like, you can't stop this tidal wave of change that's happening. But to your point, like just sort of like it is the right thing to do. I think everybody feels that, yes, getting like creating a cleaner environment, just like to be very broad stroke in a statement is like, I don't know. I would hate to know the person that disagrees with that sentiment. So I think we're all kind of believing that. I do have a question just around the business. So how do you guys make money? Like what's the business model here?
Mm-hmm. So obviously we make a little bit of a spread on the debt, like we're mobilizing
that makes perfect sense.
Finance, right?
Yeah.
We have created a software platform. So that is pulling from vehicle telematics, which of course you in the Rose Rocket world have been fantastic at slicing and dicing and doing great things with. All we're doing with it is trying to verify what we get from that with what we get from charger management software. And let me tell you, we are deep in making that data settle down.
Cool.
We need that because we have to help our clients make the business case for the follow-on investment. We need that for those who have, shippers or purchasers of their transportation that want accurate reporting on GHGs. We need it in markets where there is a carbon credit, where there's actually a revenue source in this. If I'm offsetting, using diesel fuel, actually, you can get paid for that. So our software layer is an important piece of it. And I mean, obviously we do a heck of a lot of project management to get this done for our clients, but because we're aggregating so many different vehicles and chargers, we're getting much more efficient at it.
Right.
Folks that are just doing 10 at their own depot. So I really appreciate, like Staples is a really is a client here in Canada, and the VP there will name. She said, it's not just our financial investment; it's our human resources investment.
What do you mean by that?
Their team time, team time doing the research, team time troubleshooting. That's data I had earlier. 70% of my job changes.
Yeah.
But the other one that she and other clients say is, oh my God, this is a driver retention tool. That's huge because the lucky driver that gets to drive the few EVs they have
Yeah.
is coming back being like, oh, I feel so much less tired because they're not on a noisy, shaking vehicle. It's
Right. Right.
quiet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're also not in a vehicle where there is, off gassing, or they're doing a lot of servicing while the vehicle's idling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get the headaches from
Yeah.
that. They're not having
Sure.
that. And then the last one is just their pride, right? I'm proud of what I'm driving around. So that's, like a crazy unintended part of the business case that time and time again, that's one that the clients mention.
Yeah.
I forgot.
No, I was just wondering how you guys make money. So it's spread on that. I'm assuming there's like markup on parts and things like that. Are you guys doing that stuff too? Like,
No, so we're
you
not
don't, eh?
doing, we're really, our MO is accelerating the successful adoption of these ZEVs.
Right.
So our play is on doing this at scale. Our
Yeah.
play is building successful IP in the space, which, you've gone through this change curve. We're very early in building of this.
Yeah, no, but it's you guys came at it from you kind of came at it from a service provider angle, and you kind of long tail the software. We were always software from day zero, right? So there was never any kind of like working into that. I mean, quite honestly, I love it's always, grass is always greener on the other side, right? I'm like, I love the financial play on this. It's like, just like, margin, arbitrage is always good. But I think what you're doing is great. I think this is a cool business. I liked it before. I like it more now because you guys are around. Okay, I'm going to ask you one final question before we go, just as like and I was gonna say, I'm not gonna quote you on it, but we are like recording this and then distributing this on a whole bunch of like different channels. So I guess I am gonna quote you on it, but this is meant to be an estimate. But I feel like you have a very unique and educated sort of seat for this question. When is Class 8 going to be available, sort of at the level in which we're discussing medium right now? So not fully like perfect, but like to a place where you can have conversations and move people into pilot projects, like very similar to this. What you're doing today, how far is Class 8 away from this?
It's here for pilots now. I'll say that.
Okay.
And in fact, there's a couple exciting things that I can't say now because we're dealing with lawyers and you'll learn about them soon. But we're about to deploy a couple of the first ones in Metro Vancouver.
Okay.
The challenge in the Canadian context has been the payload.
Mm-hmm.
So these batteries take up weight, right?
Right.
Then that impacts what we can haul. So that works really well in California. You're hauling chips and stuff. It's super light consumer goods, right?
Right.
In Canada, we're hauling a lot of resource-based things. So we need vehicles with higher payload. I will say there's OEMs that are working with the drivetrain manufacturers, and they are getting exemptions that will say, if you haul X, we will honor the warranty.
Mm-hmm.
That is not yet at scale.
Mm-hmm.
The supply of batteries into this space has been a lot of umming and ahhing and switching out. So there's been things that have slowed that particular segment's readiness. But I mean, the truck that's behind me in the picture here, that is a Class 7 truck that we deployed in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some headaches in the early days for sure. D1 of anything is, but it's out there, it's delivering.
Yeah.
So we're there. We're not at scale. Like, honestly, it is for sure 3 to 4 years before a lot of us are moving into this with confidence.
Right.
But, for those intercity, interregional, less than 400 kilometer journeys, so long as you've got the facility space to enable the charging and that works with your operational pattern, right? You're not operating 24/7. These vehicles have a chance to sleep and recharge. We're there. The challenge is that's not how you book loads right now, right? You got drivers that go back and forth. So this is where I get to, that starts to get to be systems redesign. Same with a port, same with a container terminal. There's clean technology that works, but it will mean the layout of that facility has got to shift a bit, which has a knock-on labor piece. It's tricky.
Right.
It's not impossible.
Right. It's a good call out, actually. I hadn't even thought about that from a Class 8, like thinking about sort of vehicle utility and keeping it moving all the time, right? And this model is not conducive to that because the vehicle has to charge. It has to be idle for a period of time. So you're right. That's a really interesting. There is a lot in the weeds in this, isn't there? It's not just simply about electrical infrastructure, battery sizes, all the kind of like the clickbait stuff. There's actually a lot of real workflow issues potentially in this, and labor management and these types of things. So Super informative. Thank you for this. There's like I learned a ton, and I think you guys again are doing great work, and I'm happy that we had a chance to meet each other and do this. So, thank you. That was really really super.
I look forward to a world where our worlds talk to each other. I look forward to a world.
I was just thinking as we're talking. Like, I feel like there's like an application for like our systems to like talk to each other somehow here. So we should actually talk about that, because it was maybe like send me a note or something after, because it's on my mind. I don't know necessarily how, but it doesn't matter. Maybe we should just talk again. So if you're open to sending me a note, I'm open to replying.
Shizzle.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for doing what you do. Thanks for hosting this.
Thank you, Shayna, and thank you, listeners, for your I was gonna say patronage, but you're not paying us, but thanks for being here. It feels like it. Don't forget to like and subscribe or do whatever it is that you do, and we will see you next show. Bye for now.